I'm not going to lose my nervous system about Trump again because he absolutely is a horrible threat and he could blow up the world on day one, or he could just sit there and eat cheeseburgers and call into Fox and Friends every day for 4 years. He's so unpredictable. I'm just not going to lose it until it happens. I can't say it enough. I said it many times. I would vote for his head in a jar of blue liquid over Donald Trump. But that doesn't mean that I'm not, first of all, I think it's a moot point at this point. He's gonna fucking lose.
Who, Biden?
Yes.
No, you're wrong.
No.
I'm gonna bet you.
Oh, great.
What should we bet?
No, nothing. You win.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I gotta tell you guys, it is still pretty early. It is still too premature to definitively say what the impact of the Trump guilty verdict is going to have on the election, okay? In my opinion, I personally think in the long run, it's going to benefit Trump, okay? Because that tends to be what happens. Something happens to Trump, the Democrats or the establishment throws something at him. It might hurt him in the short term a little bit. In the long term, his poll numbers goes up, right? He has become more popular than he's ever been before. And he's been around for 8-9 years in politics now, right? And again, they've thrown everything at this man, including politically motivated indictments, but that still didn't stop Teflon Don for allegedly raising over $200 million as a result of the guilty verdict that happened in the New York trial that everybody knows was not fair.
This might be a little inside information, but as I was leaving my house about 37 seconds ago, I asked my wife, what are we up to now? And she said, just in terms of small dollar, we're well over $70 million. This is $21 donations, $43 donations, right? Small dollar donations. If you add the large dollar donations to it, you're over $200 million, but you're over $70 million. And by the way, Maria, 30% of those people have never been seen before by a political party, right? I mean, these are Americans who are pissed off. They're coming out of the woodwork, and they want to support a guy that they just believe is getting bamboozled by a system. And we saw it with impeachment 1. We saw it with impeachment 2. We see it where they weaponize every liberal DA and AG across the country with one intent, to take him down, to slander him, to ruin his reputation, to try and divide his family, to try and bankrupt him, to throw him in jail, to do whatever the hell they can do. And America sees through it. They know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, so not only is Trump raising a massive amount of money, okay, $200 million is mind-boggling, okay, almost $250 million in cash. I'm pretty sure the Biden campaign, the Democrats, the DOJ, Alvin Bragg, the judge, none of these Democrats expected for the guilty verdict against Trump to backfire the way that it has. I mean, this guy has essentially raised more money in the past few days than he's probably raised through most of his campaign, right? And that includes Joe Biden as well, too, okay? Because this is something that the liberal media was bragging about. Well, Trump broke, right? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember, oh, Trump broke. He ain't got no money, right? Y'all remember all of that rhetoric that was happening a few months ago, okay? When Trump was, you know, a little low on campaign cash. Yeah, those same people are probably going to be silent, right? They're not going to have much to say about Trump raising over $200 million. They're going to be very, very, very quiet about that. They're not going to mention that at all, okay? But with that being said, it's not just that Trump is raising a massive amount of money, which is important. He's also just outright winning, okay? And we know that he's winning because, again, this is what the indictments are for in order to stop Trump from winning. This is what the Trump derangement in the liberal media is for, to stop Trump from winning. And also, the Biden administration, they're doing desperate things like hiring Robert De Niro and decrying Capitol Hill police officers to come out here and to, you know, speak outside of Trump's trial, and he wants to debate Trump. Like, we know that he's winning, okay? The polls are showing that he's winning, and the places that really matter, the swing states, for the most part, Trump is doing pretty well, okay? Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, it looks like at this point, those states aren't even going to be competitive. The states that are going to be competitive, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Trump is doing pretty well in those states. He's up in most polls in those states. However, that's just not it for the news in regards to swing states, because there may be another state in play that could be a swing state, and that state is Virginia, because polls are now showing that Trump is on the verge of flipping Virginia from blue to red. Take a look.
This all comes amid Trump's latest bid for the White House. A new Roanoke College poll shows Trump and President Joe Biden tied here in Virginia. The Institute for Policy and Opinion Research interviewed over 700 likely Virginia voters earlier this month. They found that Trump and Biden tied with 42% of voters. But when you include other independent candidates, Biden leads Trump by 2 points. For voters, the top 3 most important issues this election were the economy, immigration, and abortion. We talked with the Institute's senior political analyst, Harry Wilson, who says only 2% of voters are undecided, which he has never seen so far out from an election. Ultimately, the decision could come down to independent voters at the polls this fall.
We've got 90% of Republicans saying they're going to vote for Trump, 90% of Democrats saying they're going to vote for Biden. So I don't expect to see much movement there. The real movement is going to be these third-party candidates and that small, tiny 2% sliver that says they're undecided, and whether they vote or who they vote for in the end.
Another interesting find in this poll is that both candidates were equally unfavorable to voters.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? And as Bill Maher said at the beginning of this video, hey, you know, if the election was held today, it seems like Biden is going to lose. That is a reality that I think that Bill Maher is starting to accept because, again, if the election was held today, statistically speaking, according to the data analysts, the people that do this for a living, it is most likely that Trump would win. In fact, the probability is 56%, okay? 56% chance of Trump winning the 2024 election. And apparently him raising $200 million helps, right? It helps his chances and it increases his chances, even though maybe in the short term, the guilty verdict, it might hurt him a little bit. But again, him raising that money kind of balances things out. And it seems as if, again, this right here is probably going to be a wash for Trump, maybe even a net positive, again, because of all the money that he raised and the amount of people that will be excited to go out and to vote for Trump versus Biden, okay? I mean, nobody's really motivated to vote for Biden. He has a woke civil war to deal with. And I think ultimately the election really is going to come down to whose base is the most excited to vote for their candidate. I just cannot imagine that there's anybody that's excited to go to the polls and vote for another 4 years of Joe Biden. I don't care who they are, right? I mean, you can see somebody like Bill Maher, who's a lifelong Democrat voter, lifelong liberal. This guy's not excited, right? He gonna vote for Biden, but he ain't excited, okay? I'm just saying. So I think that's what's gonna come down to.
154 days away from Election Day, Decision Desk HQ is out with its latest forecast. So these are not polls. These are models to show you what they think the best chance of a result is. And they predict with 58% chance of winning that Donald Trump will be the victor in November's election with 280 Electoral College votes, Biden's 258. DDHQ also predicts Republicans taking majorities in both chambers of Congress, the GOP picking up 3 seats in the Senate, giving them a 52-48 edge. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure they got this backwards, right? Because the Senate map for the GOP looks a lot better than Democrats, and it is a good chance that, again, the GOP is going to win the Senate, okay? But again, it's not just Trump becoming president that's important, but it's also important that the GOP wins the Senate and continues to keep the House. And the reason why is because if Democrats win the House, or if, you know, the Senate is effectively tied, or maybe Democrats kind of squeeze it out, that's going to make it a lot harder for Trump to do the things that he wants to do, right? That's going to essentially mean that his presidency will effectively be a stalemate and he won't be able to get much done, okay? So he definitely going to need to have Republicans win the Senate and the House.
Shows Republicans winning the House 222 to Democrats 213. Scott Tranter, data science director for Decision Desk HQ, and Liberty, who helped with the modeling on this, is with us now. Scott, we talked about this on Balance Thursday or Friday night, maybe Wednesday night before the conviction. So how do you model, with all of the data you guys have, a conviction?
Well, so we take in things like horse race polls, fundraising, all that kind of stuff. We've had
so the $200 million that Donald Trump raised over the past 3 days
has factored into it.
Okay.
Yep. as well as 3 new opinion head-to-head polls. And the polls show that there wasn't a lot of opinion movement. So our own model only moved slightly. It only went from 58 to 56% chances that Donald Trump is going to win. So it went down 2 points. And the reason why it went down 2 points is because the overarching polls, the 2 polls that we had out, moved a few points against Donald Trump, specifically on the independent. So the fundraising helped, but he needed the fundraising to get him back to parity. It was the opinion movement on those polls. So we'll see what happens in these individual states as we come through. So we're expecting some out of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania over the next week.
And that's what really matters. And this is why, like, when it comes to the polls right now, a lot of people are understating just how much Trump is leading over Joe Biden, because Trump tends to underperform the polls, okay? In 2016, basically every poll had Hillary winning. I mean, it was almost a foregone conclusion that Hillary was going to win. I mean, even Hillary herself thought that she was going to win. I mean, she was already crowning herself the next president, okay? She thought she was going to be the first female president. Didn't happen, right? Got her bubble burst. And then you look at 2020, Joe Biden ended up winning by less than what the polls had indicated, right? So Trump overperformed the polls in 2016. He overperformed the polls in 2020. And there's no reason for me to believe that he won't do that again in 2024. And again, this is why these polls showing Trump up 1 or 2 or whatever. And a lot of people think that, oh, well, that's not a lot. Like, he's barely winning. Like, it's 50-50. Yes, but at the same time, you got to understand, Trump typically underperforms in the polls, but he overperforms during the election, right? When it's time for people to actually go vote, Trump overperforms the polling, okay? And also on top of that, in the national polling, if a Republican wins the popular vote, it's over, right? Period. Just because of the way that the maps are set up. If a Republican wins the popular vote, is basically a 90% chance they're going to win the election, right? So not only is Trump winning the popular vote, right, but you also got to understand that given where the polls are right now, it is likely that he's probably underperforming versus what's going to happen on election day, just based off the history that we have, okay, that shows that, yeah, Trump tends to underperform in the polls, okay? And again, that is why I think that, you have the Biden campaign, the Biden administration, Democrats, Bill Maher, they're freaking out because anybody who's looked at these numbers for years knows that, yeah, this is headed towards a landslide.
The only poll that actually matters is the one on November 5th, right? When we all wake up and figure out how the votes. Liberty, what is this really showing us that's different than when we say in the national polls, Biden's at 42 and Trump's at 44?
I mean, Scott may disagree with me here, but I think the fact that it did move means something. You know, everyone's talked about how the difference was about 4% between people who were affected by the conviction or not. 4% in America when a race is this close matters. I mean, it's not nothing. I mean, this is a very, very, very close race. So the couple percentage of people, when you're looking at the entire electorate of America, that's a lot of peoples.
This race is going to be decided by a point or two. So yeah, as Dr. Vitter points out, 2 to 3 points is going to be the difference.
All right. Yeah, that's true. But here's the thing. Here's what you got to understand. I think personally that people's minds were already kind of made up about the verdict, okay, and what it would mean before the trial, okay? And I just think that anybody who is affected by the guilty verdict and what is obviously the most political of all of these trials against Trump, in the sense that makes them more likely to vote Biden, probably weren't paying attention in the first place and probably were people that are voting for Joe Biden, right? They are probably people that were leaning towards voting for Joe Biden anyways or just sitting out the election. And maybe the verdict, in their opinion, maybe that motivates them to go vote for Joe Biden. But I don't think that, again, anybody that's like, oh, well, I'm not going to vote for Trump because he's a convicted felon. If you're actually informed, you know how this happened. You know this is political. If you're actually paying attention, you know it's bogus. I'm not sure exactly, again, why that would change your vote. If anything, it should motivate you to vote for Trump if you actually really are open to voting for him. So again, I don't think anybody that was really open to voting for Trump was going to let this verdict change their mind. I think if your mind is changed because of this bogus verdict, then you aren't paying attention, okay? You're probably not that informed about what's going on. And also on top of that, you probably were going to vote for Biden anyways or sit out. So that's why I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think it's going to move the needle. The only thing that it really did is that it motivated Trump supporters, Trump's base, to support him even more and gave them more motivation, people that actually really want to see Trump become president again and to get rid of Joe Biden because of his terrible economy and his terrible policies. It just motivated them to come out and vote even more. And also on top of that, again, the weaponization of the system, okay, against political opponents. So, yeah, I mean, it motivated Trump's base. Trump raised a ton of money, and I don't think it really hurt him that much. Biden's base, again, no matter what happens to Trump, they're not excited to vote for him. And there's nothing that the Democrats can do to change that at all. There's nothing they can do.
The only poll that actually matters is the one on November 5th, right? When we all wait. All right. When do we really get a sense of that the conviction bakes in, number one, and number two, we still have 5 months to go, Lord help us all, that there's not other more pressing and overarching issues that are going to come out through the summer and into the fall that matter a lot more than business records in New York?
Well, I think by the time this gets baked in, which is 2 or 3 weeks, gives you time to sit and talk with your families, read a little bit of news about it, all that kind of stuff. We're going to have the first presidential debate in June. So we're going to have something else to talk about. I think by the fall, the conviction will certainly be in ads and things like that, but we'll be talking about something else by then. That's what we've seen in this Donald Trump cycle over the last 6 or 7 years. Every week is something new.
Can you?
Yeah, but they'll continue to talk about, oh, Trump's a convicted felon and all that. But yeah, I definitely agree in the sense that it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks for people to really know what the effect is going to be. But again, the reason for that is because, again, a lot of people are just not educated on it. And I think anybody that really gets educated on this is going to realize that, hey, you know, this wasn't right. And again, it's already showing up in the polls, right? Some of the snapshot polls they've taken, almost half, or if not more than half of the American people believe that this was politically motivated. I mean, even if it's over 40%, right, which consistently the number is over 40%, that's a huge amount of people. That's a huge amount of people, right? Again, if at least half of the country believes it's politically motivated, that's all you need. It's a wash at that point, because then it's basically on party lines, right? It's on party lines. And I think Republicans are making much better arguments in the media than the Democrats are making, and the mainstream liberal media is making in regards to why it's not politically motivated. I think anybody looking at this objectively can see, yeah, it's politically motivated. I mean, you just listen to them talk. They're telling you it's politically motivated while at the same time telling you it's not.
Put into this model the number of illegal immigrants coming across the border, the inflation rate, the cost of gas, the cost of groceries.
So the way that goes in there is opinion, right? So we take that objectively, but we have the polling. We ask where these issues are among the people, how it ranks among voters, and then that cycles into the horse race. Because at the end of the day, people might tell you they care about immigration or something like that, but if it's not a top 3 issue, it's not going to translate to the top line, which it happens to be. But that's why, you know, things like education, while people care about it, doesn't necessarily move the needle.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that abortion doesn't end up moving the needle too much. I mean, I think that's the one thing that could probably save Democrats. I don't think the convictions are going to save them. But again, it remains to be seen. All I know is that you have some states, like in Virginia, that seems like they're on the verge of flipping red. Some people may argue that Virginia's already red, which, you know, hey, with the election of Glenn Youngkin, that would indicate that Virginia's already a red state. But again, you know, it was blue in 2020. It seems like he's going to flip red in 2024. He's on the verge of flipping red. You have a bunch of swing states like North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. It seems like Trump is just running away there, okay? And in the rest of the states, you know, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Trump is leading in most polls, even though it's a lot closer. So, again, this is looking good for Trump. I think him raising $200 million is only going to move the momentum forward for him, okay? And it seems as if, again, these convictions are shaping up to be a major backfire for the Democrats and the Biden administration. But, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.